Hi, I'm Grace Lynch. Welcome to my channel. Um, Listen for the Wilderness Chronicles. I wanted to just make a little thing building on the last video about perspective-based meaning and talk about a chemical basis for the experience of time. My time center seemed to get knocked out, which just means like I don't experience one moment changing into the next. I'm inside the thing happening right now, but the world sort of flows around me, and I never experienced any change for whatever reason since I woke up on August 16th, 1987. But so, like, I've been talking with AI about the experience of time because it fascinates me that other people experience it and I don't. And I kind of wonder, like, if it seems like there'd be a chemical basis, and then if I have the concept of perspective-based meaning, it becomes easier to see where the experience of time could come from. Because if you have perception being the transformation of the body on a cellular level, electrical level, where things happen, it changes them. The things affect your skin and it sends signals to the brain. That's a change in the body. Light hits the cells of your eye, changes the cells, sends a signal to your brain, affects the body. Goes in the eardrum signals. Your body is changed on a cellular level. There are electrical changes, and your body never goes back to the original state it was in. It may go back to a kind of homeostasis that's similar to what happened before the experience took place, but it's never quite the same. So your body has been changed. And it occurred to me that what could be happening in the experience of time is, and why it happens if you're narrative-based consciousness, the experience happens and it causes a kind of arousal, and your brain takes it in not understanding what has physiologically changed in your body. And because you're on alert, because it's the unknown, you have the natural threat response to the unknown, not as if it's really a danger. It's just you respond to it as if it's an unknown thing. I think it's a good thing physiologically, but if you look at things as a perspective-based kind of meaning, then that chemistry becomes part of the meaning of the experience at the time when it happens to you. And so then as you go through the process of understanding what the experience is, then you resolve it into an understanding that you had, and that transforms it from an unknown, which is a kind of threat, to something more familiar, which is a kind of safety. And when you achieve that kind of safety, the result, at least in my experience, is when you achieve a new understanding, the result, in my experience, the reason it's an effective understanding is it produces this kind of feeling of safety, of resolution of what the experience was. So if you don't look at the experience in terms of its content, but in terms of its impact on the safety system, then the experience comes in, and the act of understanding is restoring safety first. So then the meaning of the experience would be the experience, but your perspective on the experience would be a contributing factor to the meaning of the experience. So if you look at the entire understanding of the experience, it would go through this transformation process. Even though the experience itself has not changed, you changed in the process of integrating it into your memory system, and it's gone from a threat to something resolved, to something familiar. And so then your chemical state at the time has gone from one that is adrenaline-based to one that is the trauma resolution state. I think it's acetylcholine or something like that, the parasympathetic. But if you look at that, then that means that you have this meaning block A of the experience, but you add to it the perspective block, which in this side is coded with trauma, and this side is coded with safety. And so then part of the meaning process of that thing, that concept, that experience, whatever it is, would be the experience inside chemically of being transformed relative to this concept in a way that's irreversible in terms of entropy and chemistry, from a danger state to a safety state. And because that chemistry is irreversible, but it's connected, that process is connected to the concept as it gets integrated, then that would explain where the concept of time comes from. Not because time is part of the experience, but because the experience of being impacted by the universe and processing it produces a chemical transition from danger to safety that is consistent. and it's chemically identical across all the experiences I've ever been through. I go from the experience of not understanding to understanding. As a person, it feels the same. This is actually the core of the transcontextual perspective. Once you learn how to visit it and make it conscious, it's not a very difficult idea. There's a kind of aha experience to resolving and understanding something that's going on. And regardless of the content of what's happening, the experience of being the person it's happening to remains constant. And so I think that's a very clear model for me to sense like where the experience of time could come from. The constant is being the person doing the resolution. And so the process has nothing to do with the content of what's being resolved. It has to do with being the person doing the resolving. And because the body has this kind of chemical process that's the same and identical, it becomes a kind of quasi-working meaning factor, whether a person's aware of it or not, that becomes built into a sense of what the world is that we're experiencing, with no reason to call it out as a separate thing. So it becomes attributed to the world around us. The world must be happening. The time must be happening. When there's no way to directly experience the world happening in its own way. There's only a way for me to experience the world happening to me and how it changes me. And then because I attribute continuity to the outside world, then the world before, when it impacts me, and the world after looks to me like it's the same, even though it actually isn't. It couldn't be, because time's passed and everything's always changing. So I ascribe that time quality to the world that I'm experiencing. And it's a fascinating kind of interplay. So that's just, I want to lay that down about how I use perspective-based meaning to understand where time could come from, or the experience of time passing. I don't experience language that way. I don't experience meaning that way. When I have an experience that comes in, it impacts me. And for me, the entire world has changed. And so then I have to work out how this experience fits with everything else I've experienced. Not in terms of language or narrative, but in terms of the feeling and the sensations I've had sort of in terms of my form of autism since I was born. It's got to feel resonantly the same as all the other experiences I've had. I don't know how else to describe that if you don't experience it. And so when something comes in, if it feels like it works the same way as everything else that works, then it's generally fine. It just finds a place, where it sort of meshes with everything else. If something, an experience comes in and it makes it so that the world taken as a whole is suddenly not something that I have an intuitive sense of, then my entire apparatus gets scrapped and I have to build a new one. And this has happened over and over and over again. It happens automatically. I don't even have any awareness of it. If I have, for instance, a provider that I'm used to, it happened not too many years ago. I didn't have as many tools then, and I had lost my primary caregiver provider, my primary physician at the VA, when he retired. And suddenly I had to switch to a new doctor, which meant talking to a new person and not feeling safe with doctors because of things that went all the way back to Shepherd Air Force Base and other experiences over the years. And all of a sudden, my world didn't work anymore. So my entire world was revised. And for a while, everything was gone. Like I had to re-understand time. I had to re-understand that I'm in my body. I had to wake up in the morning and refigure out, figuring out how to make coffee and what money was. And, so it's literally a clean slate that, but I'm not narrative based. So for me, I'm not porting one concept to another concept inside the same narrative system. But anyway, I just thought I'd capture that. It seemed like a pretty neat kind of thing. It's a different model for where time could come from, but it's based on more on physiology than on conception. So I'm not saying it would be right for anybody else. I'm just saying it helps me understand. It helps me apply what I understand is forced perspective-based meaning seems to be a better match for what human reality is. And given that I look at it that way, then it gives an elegant explanation for where the phenomenon of time possibly could come from in terms of chemistry. So I hope that made sense. And we'll see you next time. I hope you hit that subscribe and like, and stay wonderful.